Hello hockey fans, Oddman Rush here and welcome back to Whatever Happened To, the series where we take a where are they now look at players who found success in the National Hockey League but are no longer permanent fixtures in the league either due to controversy, poor play or simply rotten luck. In today's episode, we are going to take a look at a 6-year veteran of the league who has suffered quite the fall from grace since being a top 10 draft pick only 9 years ago. So join me as we answer the question, whatever happened to Jake Virtanen? The 6th overall pick of the 2014 NHL draft by the Vancouver Canucks, Jake Virtanen would return to major juniors shortly after his selection, as he spent the following 14-15 season with the WHL's Calgary Hitmen. After scoring 52 points in only 50 regular season games, and after winning a gold medal with Team Canada at the 2015 World Junior Championships, the Canadian forward would turn pro before the end of the year, as he joined the Canucks minor league affiliate the Utica Comets, and he scored a single point in 10 games during the AHL playoffs. The 15-16 NHL season would see Virtanen join the Canucks for training camp and make a strong impression for his organisation, as the former 6th overall draft pick would notch 4 points in 6 preseason games to earn a place on Vancouver's opening night roster. Though he would spend a pair of games down in the minors due to his slow start in the show, and though he would be loaned back to Team Canada for the 2016 World Juniors, Virtanen would spend the majority of the year on the Canucks roster, where he registered 7 goals and 13 points in 55 games as a rookie. Not exactly Calder-winning numbers, but a respectable performance nonetheless. Having gotten his first taste of NHL hockey and having already shown glimpses of the forward he could become, the following 16-17 season would be quite the turbulent year for Virtanen almost immediately after it began. Despite being instructed by the Canucks to maintain a weight of 213 pounds over the off-season, Virtanen would turn up to training camp weighing 231 pounds, 18 pounds more than the Canucks had asked for. While Virtanen would remain on the roster out of training camp and he would suit up for opening night once again, the forward wouldn't last very long. After playing just 10 games for the Canucks, and after scoring just a single assist during that span, Virtanen was reassigned to the Utica Comets in early November 2016. Having been demoted to the minors, Virtanen would end up spending the rest of the year in Utica, and he would struggle to find his rhythm in the AHL, as he spent much of his time in the Comets' bottom 6 forward core, and he scored just 19 points in 65 regular season games. The 17-18 season would see Virtanen join the Canucks for training camp once again and look to finally establish himself as a full-time NHL player. Thanks to his performance during preseason and his play during camp, the 21-year-old would begin the year with the Canucks for the 3rd season in a row. From there, Virtanen would perform far better than his disappointing year prior, as he would remain in Vancouver for the entire season and he would register improved scoring numbers thanks to potting 10 goals and 20 points in 75 games. Unfortunately though, this performance wouldn't help Vancouver return to the playoffs, as the Canucks missed out on the postseason for the 3rd year in a row. Once his entry-level contract had expired, and having bounced back from a disappointing year prior, both Virtanen and the Canucks were eager to keep their partnership going for a little while longer, as on July 25, 2018, Virtanen signed a 2-year, $2.5 million contract worth $1.25 million a season with the organisation. So after returning to the show following a demotion to the minors, and after finally getting comfortable in the league, Virtanen would be remaining in Vancouver for the foreseeable future. Though he would make modest strides forward, and though he would be the subject of numerous controversies during this deal, this contract would prove to be money well spent. The next 2 years of Virtanen's career would see the forward remain on the Canucks roster and show continued improvement in his production from one season to the next. After notching 25 points in 75 games during the 18-19 NHL season, despite missing an entire month of the year with a fractured rib, the Canadian forward would score an impressive 18 goals and 36 points in 69 games during the following 2019-20 season, setting new career highs in goals, assists and points, despite the season being cut short due to the pandemic. However, for all his success on the ice, Virtanen would become embroiled in several incidents off it too. For example, when asked why Virtanen had spent much of training camp skating with predominantly AHL players, Canucks head coach Travis Green told reporters that there were certain goals that the forward had failed to meet during the off-season, while Virtanen would also be filmed attending the Celebrities nightclub in Vancouver, despite the city introducing social distancing rules and the league preparing to enter Stage 2 of its return to play program, an incident which the Canucks told reporters that they had addressed internally. That said, Virtanen was able to produce a career year in spite of his failed off-season goals, and he hadn't broken any laws or league rules by going to the nightclub without a mask on. So these incidents really weren't anything too scandalous, you know. Once the NHL finally returned to play, Virtanen would join Vancouver in the 2020 playoff bubble, where the forward would have a slow start once again. After failing to impress the Canucks coaching staff during training camp yet again, and after being scratched for Vancouver's first game of the qualifying round, Virtanen would suit up for the Canucks for the entirety of their playoff run, where the forward potted 3 points in 16 games, as Vancouver were eliminated in the second round by the Vegas Golden Knights. Once his 2-year contract had expired, and having just registered his most productive season yet, Virtanen was eager to remain with the Canucks, but he wanted a sizable raise in his salary in order to do so. Though Vancouver would file for salary arbitration, on October 22, 2020, Virtanen would be awarded a 2-year, $5.1 million contract worth $2.55 million a season. So thanks to his continued progression in the show, and thanks to his career-high performance, Virtanen had just signed the biggest and most expensive contract of his entire NHL career. However, thanks to the events of the following months, this deal would be terminated far sooner than anyone would expect. The 2021 NHL season saw Virtanen return to the Canucks once again and look to keep up the good work during his 6th year with the team. Unfortunately though, things wouldn't go the way that he wanted, as the 24-year-old scored only 5 goals during his first 38 games of the year. Despite this sizable step backwards during the first half of the season, Virtanen's on-ice play was about to be the least of his worries, as his NHL career would soon come crashing down around him. On May 1st, 2021, the Canucks announced that Virtanen had been placed on leave following allegations of sexual assault that had been made against the forward. According to reports at the time, Virtanen, who was 21 years old at the time of the alleged incident, had supposedly sexually assaulted an 18-year-old woman in West Vancouver in September of 2017. And while the victim claimed that she had repeatedly told Virtanen that she didn't want to have sex with him, the forward claimed that the incident was a completely consensual encounter between 2 willing participants. Though these claims were only allegations at the time, and though no charges had been made against him at that point, on July 25, 2021, Vancouver announced that they had placed Virtanen on unconditional waivers, and they had bought out the remainder of his contract with the team. So after being drafted 6th overall just 7 years prior, and after producing a turbulent tenure with the Canucks organisation, Jake Virtanen had left the only NHL team he had ever known following allegations of sexual assault. Now, while he hadn't been charged with any crime at the time of his termination, and while you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, given that Virtanen had produced another down year, and given that the Canucks never seemed to be all that pleased with him, I wouldn't be surprised if Vancouver used this situation as a way to finally cut ties with Virtanen altogether. I mean, the guy had failed to come anywhere close to his potential over half a decade after his selection. He had consistently failed to meet the goals that his coaching staff had set out for him, and he had just been hit with allegations of sexual assault. I could see why the team might have felt enough was enough, you know? Having been made an unrestricted free agent less than a year into his new deal, and with these allegations around him still pending, the rest of the NHL had little interest in signing Virtanen for the following 21-22 season. After several months of waiting, and with him still unable to secure a contract, Virtanen would ultimately take his talents overseas, as on September 7th, 2021, he signed a 1-year contract with Spartak Moscow of the KHL. So after having his contract terminated just 2 months prior, and after failing to find another suitor in the show, Virtanen was packing his bags and making the move to Russia. Well, he's certainly not the first player to follow this route, is he? The 21-22 season would see Virtanen join Spartak for the very first time and look to produce a strong debut in the KHL. Though he would play noticeably better than his NHL season prior, the forward would still register modest scoring numbers, as he finished the year with 9 goals and 16 points in 36 KHL games. Now, while this production isn't much to write home about from a former 6th overall draft pick who had potted 18 goals just 2 years prior, Virtanen had been formally charged with sexual assault by Vancouver police in January of 2022, so he had far bigger things going on at the time, right? After terminating his contract with Moscow in March of 2022 following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and after being found not guilty of sexual assault in July of that same year, Virtanen would attempt to make a comeback to the NHL, as on September 19th, 2022, the forward signed a professional tryout contract with the Edmonton Oilers. Though he would attend the Oilers training camp ahead of the recent 22-23 NHL season, and though he would suit up in several pre-season games for the side, the Oilers would release Virtanen from his tryout on October 6th of that year. Having been released from his PTO before the season began, and having last played in the show back in 2020, Virtanen was eager to secure another contract with any NHL team that would have him. However, after a month went by and with minimal interest from the league, Virtanen decided to cut his losses and return to Europe, as on November 6, 2022, he signed a 2-year contract with EHC Visp of the second-tier Swiss league. So after attempting to make a comeback to the NHL and after falling short of his goal, Virtanen had moved back across the pond and had taken his talents to Switzerland. Thanks to the events of the following months though, Virtanen wouldn't stick around for very long. Having joined Visp in early November, Virtanen would hit the ground running almost immediately out of the gate, as he would put his NHL experience to great use by notching 14 goals and 25 points in his first 21 games with the team. However, for all his success on the ice, Virtanen would face further controversy off it once again. According to a report by Swiss newspaper Le Matin, Virtanen had proved to be an unpopular teammate due to his selfish attitude. He was accused of turning his back on his teammates, and it was inferred that he only cared about the name on the back of his jersey and little about the logo on the front. Not only that, it was reported that Virtanen got into a physical altercation with Visp teammate Daniel Eigenmann on a bench during a game, as Virtanen was supposedly benched by Visp head coach Marco Schuppbach late in a 5-1 loss on January 31st, 2023. In response to this altercation, Eigenmann supposedly went to Visp's management on behalf of his teammates and gave the front office an ultimatum: it's either him or us. As a result, Virtanen's contract would be terminated on February 11th, 2023, and he would be dismissed from the team shortly after. Well, that's one way to have your contract ended. Having been released from Visp and having produced a point-a-game performance in spite of his locker room issues, Virtanen wouldn't take long to find another team, as on February 14th, 2023, he joined the Fishtown Penguins of Germany's DEL. So after being terminated by Visp, and after prematurely exiting from the team, Virtanen would take his talents to Germany for the very first time. From there, Virtanen would end up spending the rest of the year with the Penguins, where he would score 2 points in 8 regular season games, as well as 2 points in 8 playoff games, before Fishtown were eliminated in the quarterfinals by Red Bull Munich. Once the season came to an end and Virtanen's debut concluded without any further controversies, both the player and his new organisation were keen to keep their partnership going into the following year of play. With Virtanen's original contract with Fishtown including an option to extend his deal into the upcoming 23-24 season, on June 7th, 2023, it was revealed that Virtanen had exercised this option and he had re-signed with the team. So thanks to his premature exit from Switzerland, and thanks to his strong start in Germany, Virtanen shall be sticking around in Bremerhaven for the foreseeable future. At least he knows where he's going to play next season. I mean, that's become quite the luxury for him at this point, right? To this day, Jake Virtanen is still a member of Fishtown's roster. With the 23-24 DEL season set to begin on September 14th, and with Virtanen having already suited up for the team, the 27-year-old forward should pick up right where he left off, and he should become an integral member of the Penguins roster from the very first drop of the puck. However, given his lengthy track record of off-ice issues, and given his recent altercation in Switzerland, will Virtanen still be a Penguin by the end of the year? Will he finally learn from his prior mistakes and avoid any further controversies, or will history repeat itself once again? I don't know about you guys, but I'm very curious to find out. But regardless of what happens next, there's no doubt that Jake Virtanen had a pretty respectable NHL career. After all, in 317 regular season games, Virtanen scored 55 goals and 100 points, as well as 3 points in 16 playoff games too. Add to that him being the 6th overall pick of his draft class, and his $7.6 million of estimated career earnings during that span, and he certainly could have done worse for himself, controversies or not. And there you go. That's what happened to Jake Virtanen. What do you guys think about Virtanen's NHL career? Was it good? Bad, or do you think he deserves another shot in the show? Do let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I do hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. A big thank you to Bexy93, Burned Retinas, Drew Fawcett, Houston NG, Raquel and Worthless Pieces for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.